Good morning. Today we're in the northern Rhône Valley to hike through the valley and learn about the wines of this region. And while we do that, I also want to take you a little behind the scenes. I fell in love with Viking before I joined the team for the same reason I know many of you did, and it's the people. It's the guests and new friends that you make on board. It's the guides and the stories and the friends you meet on shore, but most of all, it's the crew and staff, both on the ship and on land, that make these travels so extraordinary. So today, while we learn about the wines, I'd also like you to learn a bit about my newest friend who helped make this series possible with his expertise. And he'll share a little bit about his life here when he was on board and back in the office. Let's go meet Nikolas. Okay, Nikolas, I'm ready for what you've promised is a downhill hike, but you've given me walking stick.
Yeah, from here on out, it's all downhill. Promise.
And the ship gave us the walking sticks.
Correct, yeah.
And you gave me some background, so I assume you've done this excursion before.
Yeah, this is our Rhône Valley vineyard hike, which is one of the optionals that we offer on our Lyon to the Provence cruise.
Well, as we head, I'd love to hear more about you, your career, but also, having had dinner with you a few times, I know you know a lot about the wine and the vineyard, so
yeah.
Teach me as we go.
It would be my pleasure.
Thanks. Let's go.
So the plot that we're walking through is from Chapoutier. This is the wine actually that we had on board yesterday evening during dinner.
Oh.
Yeah. And so the grape here that they grow is a Shiraz. And this hillside is considered kind of the spiritual birthplace of the Shiraz grape. So the red wines that are here predominantly made are always made with 100% Shiraz. From time to time they may put in a little bit of Roussanne or Marsanne, which is a white grape, because they also do grow white wine here as well.
Oh, here.
Yeah,
the white
so these
grapes
are the white grapes and the red grapes.
And the red.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I like
Yeah.
hiking with the wine I drank.
Yeah. And then Chapoutier, what's also interesting about them is that they are a biodynamic wine grower.
Oh.
Yeah.
Very popular in the States now.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's also taking off quite a bit in France in many regions, and Chapoutier is definitely one of the most prominent biodynamic wine growers.
I'll definitely order it again tonight.
Yeah.
Chapoutier.
Chapoutier.
I presume this is the 13th century chapel that I read about.
Well spotted. This is the chapel that was built by the Knight Gaspard, who was granted this land after he returned wounded from the Crusades in the southern part of France, where there was a subsect of Catholicism that arose called the Cathars. They believed that there were two gods, the Old Testament God, who was evil in their view, and the New Testament God, who was good. And so we were living in the world of the evil God, which is why they're suffering here, and to ascend to the New Testament God. And that wasn't really appreciated by the Pope, so there were crusades in France itself, and he led them, and he came back wounded, and he resided here as a hermit. That's why the name is, and the town is called l'Hermitage, and he's the one who had this chapel built.
Hermitage from hermit.
Exactly.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
As promised, I would like to ask you a little bit about your life. Can I hear?
Please, yeah.
Tell me a little bit about what brought you to Viking and to the travel career.
Yeah. So out of university, I didn't have a lot of job opportunities. It was the economic crisis, so I rolled into guiding as one of the things to do because I was always very interested in history and culture.
Where were you guiding?
In Antwerp, in Belgium, where I live. And from there, I learned that program director was a job that existed in the first place. And at a certain moment, Viking was really looking for people to fill the position. And I got lucky. They gave me a chance. I was 26 at the time, so I was quite young to get started at Viking, and I immediately fell in love with it, and I've been working for Viking ever since. I, have had no doubts ever since that time that it was the right place for me. So.
And so you've been on the ships in France. Clearly, every guide knows you. We might start calling you the king of the Rhône. So how many years did you sail the rivers, and what are you doing now?
Yeah, so I sailed the rivers for about 5 years. Most, as you said, always in France, and a lot of my time was spent on the Rhône River here. It's still my favorite route. And then a few years ago, they were talking about a job opportunity as part of the corporate team to help overview and help out with the excursions and the program directors and such. And I applied, and they were, gracious enough to give me the chance and the opportunity to move up in the company. And I think that's something that, it's exciting for our guests to see how Viking grows and evolves and adds new routes and itineraries, but at the same time that's also giving a lot of opportunities for us as crew to grow with Viking as well.
I love that. But the guests still might see you on board the ships, because coming on board with us for this filming isn't the only time you travel.
No, I am on the road every week. I do travel to kind of get a good view about what's happening on the ships, how the excursions are running. So I travel to the ships every week.
And your territory is the Rhône, but what else are your
So I do the 3
territory?
cruises that we have in France. So the Rhône, we also have the Seine cruise.
Oh, I love the Paris to Normandy.
Exactly. I also do Chateau Rivers and Wine in Bordeaux.
Oh, haven't done that one next.
And then part of my territory is also our Portugal cruise.
Oh, the Douro.
Yeah, exactly, the River of Gold.
Well, so you focus a lot on drinking.
Yeah, that's one of the perks. That's one of the perks.
As our guide mentioned yesterday, we drink an alarming amount of rosé on this trip, and now Shiraz.
Yeah. Oh, it'd be a shame not to do some quality control while you're out here, So, yeah.
Thanks for teaching us about that, the wine, and Viking.
My pleasure.
Hope we get to travel with you again very soon.
I look forward to it.
Thanks, Nikolas.
So with these hillsides, the views are much more dramatic than what you get at Châteauneuf-du-Pape, for instance. The kind of rolling down here.
It is, I guess, to catch the sunlight longer.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's reflected in the character of the wine, which is a little bit more peppery as well.
Here we go again, Chapoutier.
Yeah.
We drank and we'll drink.
And there's a really nice viewpoint just up here.
Where our ship used to be.
Where our ship used to be
before I got fired and it sailed away.
Yeah, before it abandoned us.
Well, it was a good time.
Yeah, exactly.
You've got to stop looking down to save from slipping to look. They might be the most beautiful vineyards I've seen.
They definitely are stunning. And I have to say though, even though I prefer the wine from the Rhône Valley, I think that the vineyards in Portugal are maybe just a little bit more spectacular, but it's definitely just amazing right here.
This is beautiful. Always the salesman.
Well,
I want to go to Portugal.
There's always that next cruise.
I want to go to Portugal.
Then I've succeeded in my goal. My Portuguese crew is going to kill me when they hear that I said that I prefer the wines here.
All right, I'm stopped, but what are you looking at? I think we're lost.
Not lost, just enjoying the view.
And let's backtrack and go the right way.
No, but how steep do we want to go?
How steep?
Yeah.
I, of course, could climb mountains like a goat. I don't think our cameraman
I'm more
can.
worried about the cameraman than I am about you at this point.
Oh, well, I think that's the general sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Is this the real way? Or
This
are
is the
you
real way
covering
that our
for
guests
your
take as well. Just wanted to see if we could
mix-up?
take a shortcut.
Yeah, straight down.
Yeah.
Nikolas, your accent is distinctly American, and
Yeah.
you're living in Belgium, so there's got to be a story behind that.
Well, my father's American and my mother's Belgian, and I was born in the States in Arizona. But I'm lucky enough to have 2 passports.
Oh,
So,
very fortunate.
Yeah, and whenever I fly, I get to feel like a spy because I can switch them out halfway through.
Or you can go through whichever lane's quicker now with the lines at the airport.
Exactly. So it has its distinct advantages. And I get to vote twice, really. That's also another one.
How many languages do you speak?
I speak about 4 languages. So I speak Dutch, or Flemish, as we'd call our accent. I speak French, English, and I do quite well in German.
I'm embarrassed.
It's okay.
A little bit of English, a lot of Southern,
Yeah.
and
Well-
merci beaucoup in France.
In smaller European countries, you really have to be able to be multilingual because, you know, in less than an hour, I'm at a border where they speak another country. So you're kind of forced to adapt as a culture to be multilingual, which, of course, working within tourism and for Viking has always been a great strength for me to be able to always communicate with people in their native language as well.
Oh,
Yeah.
very much so.
Helps build up good relations and helps the guests as well if they have to go to a hospital or get a restaurant booking or want to do anything special off the ship as well.
I'm still very impressed. 4 languages is up there.
Look, it's never too late to learn, Jean.
We may be getting there. I think we've entered the Hollywood of the Rhône Valley.
Everybody wants to mark their territory, you know, not just in Hollywood.
That is serious, serious branding.
Yeah, exactly.
Almost as much as your Viking bag.
Yeah, exactly.
Onwards to the tasting.
Yep, finally.
We got the wine from the cooperative over here, and I want you to explain a little what the cooperative means.
So there's major wine producers in this area, and there's a lot of small vineyards with smaller plots who really can't compete with these huge big name vineyards. So instead of competing with them directly, what they'll often do is they'll pool their resources together, share their harvests and their grapes, and then they try to make the best wine possible from the plots that they have combined with. So it's really a cooperation between
cooperative
different
effort.
winemakers. And oftentimes those wines are actually really stellar as well because they make a good selection out of a wide amount of grapes to choose from.
They were doing a banner business on what is today, Thursday morning.
Yeah.
So definitely the French are shopping here. So
Well, the French are always shopping for wine, that's for sure. You can count on them on that one. Would you want some?
Yes, please. You also promised chocolate, which we don't have.
We'll have some
but what
chocolate
is the
later on.
chocolate that is famous here?
The chocolate that's famous here all comes from Valrhona, which is of course very well known for the chocolate that it supplies to the pâtissiers and many of the Michelin star restaurants all over France.
Okay.
It's a very high-end chocolate that's also all made here in Tain-l'Hermitage.
We made it down, no one fell,
Yes,
and it was drop dead beautiful.
absolutely gorgeous.
Let's taste. It's good.
I love the wines from this area because Côte du Rhône wines tend to be very flexible. They're very good bang for your buck, and you can drink them on their own, but they're also powerful enough to pair with many different dishes. Unlike Bordeaux or Châteauneuf-du-Pape wines, which are very specific and very overpowering, these go with pretty much anything. And that way, it's always a safe bet to open a bottle of Côte du Rhône, and you know you're always going to be right there.
This is about my level of expertise, so I like that. I can trust Côte du Rhône, whatever I'm serving, but appropriately red or white.
Exactly, exactly.
Any other flavor notes? Or
Well,
once I saw pencil shavings listed as a flavor note, which sort of
they tend to be
surprised me.
highly personal, but for these I get some more like stone fruits, like apricot a little bit I get from the white, and the reds tend to be a little bit peppery and dark red fruit.
This is very, very light.
Yeah,
It's good. All right, I'm going to throw a curveball. Sorry. You shared some personal news with us on board.
Yeah.
And I'm certain you want to share it on camera. I'm not, but I hope you do. But if you'd like to,
Well,
can you share a little bit of personal news?
yeah, my girlfriend Sue and I are expecting our first child in January, so that's really something that we're looking forward to.
I'm sorry to throw that on you, but
That's okay.
I was excited to hear it, and I know others will be too. Cheers to the baby.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for everything. We could not have made this series without your expertise leading us.
Anytime, June.
Our ship docked in the small town of Vienne, just south of Lyon. I hadn't heard of Vienne before this trip, but was excited to discover the Roman history that I had read about. I wasn't disappointed. The minute you step off the ship, you're in the middle of a park that was once a Roman neighborhood, and there were even more astounding sights to discover. As with so many stops on this journey, Vienne is rarely visited by travelers, so we had every sight to ourselves. For me, the most exciting treat was the opportunity to walk along a Roman road, all alone. Thankfully, our expert guide Alex walked us through the many layers of Vienne's past. Alex?
Bonjour.
Bonjour, merci beaucoup.
Avec plaisir.
What would you like to show us first?
The park where we are, every corner there's something. Well, there's a Roman street just here behind you.
A Roman street that is this close to the river. Was the river important to the Romans?
Very important, that's why the Romans settled here when they conquered this area, and the ship is docked where the Romans would dock a long time ago.
So we're docked where Julius Caesar pulled his ship into.
Indeed, and he also crossed the river here. That's what we're going to see.
Oh, fabulous. And how are monuments integrated in the city? They're just scattered around, or they're extant where they were originally?
They were where they were originally, and that's what's the beauty of Vienne is. Every corner there's something. There's a saying that's been going for centuries in French, à chaque fois qu'on creuse, on trouve. Every time you dig, you find. Every single street there's something to see, a surprise.
Well, I've been surprised just reading about it. Now I look forward to walking on it.
Over there.
So to the Roman road?
The Roman road, a street that was out of the city, that was found in the late 1800s.
So this is the outskirts of the city.
Just out of the city, a wall, a moat, and an area with big warehouses and the big port. So this was one of the streets we're going to see that was connecting the city to the port.
So this would have been the way they transported goods to the port.
Indeed, and you'll still see what's left here. We can even go down
Oh,
if you want to walk.
yes.
Allez, like the Romans
I see chariot marks, just as I've seen in Pompeii.
in Pompeii.
To me, that brings it to life. The chariot wheels made the indentations
Yes,
as
the
they
tracks,
went to the port.
like the metal wheels that were there. You can still see
Okay.
the sidewalk
Oh,
And these stones, you'll still find them also in Pompeii. There are many, like cubes that allowed them, people over there, to cross the street.
I don't mean to badmouth Pompeii or Rome, but I've never been in the Roman Forum or Pompeii where I was the only one on the street. And to me, this is exhilarating. It's
is
just,
beautiful.
it's my street. It's walking along history.
It's the same thing, like 2,000 years ago, and you can walk on it, and there's a surprise every corner, as we said. Well, just here, down the tree, here's a Roman sarcophagus.
Oh, but first I want to point out the chariot marks, just because they mesmerize me. Look at this. This was a chariot wheel heading to town with goods or back to the port. It leaves me breathless to be able to do this alone at a site. This is a rare treat for
Privilege.
any history buff or for anyone who wants to become a history buff. You just can't do this and be in a site alone and enjoy it. Oh, I want to look at the sarcophagus, if I may.
Over there, yes.
I like to touch history. Do you know what this dates from? Or
No, but
they
it's
haven't dated it?
nearly all the things we see here is 1st century AD.
First century AD.
So it's already nearly 2,000 years old.
I'm already entranced, but I know there are a couple more big treasures we're going to see. Tell me where we're headed next.
You cannot miss in Vienne the landmark, which is the temple dedicated to the Roman emperor, and there are very few still standing in the world. One is here in Vienne.
Still standing, the
Still
temple.
standing.
And what about the theater I've read about?
The theater is actually the other big thing in Vienne, second largest in Gaul, and it's still used. That's what's beautiful.
Tell us more when we're there, but I just want to touch history another time. It's not the heat making me faint, it is the history. It's beautiful. It's not Roman.
Romanesque.
Roman Catholic?
Yes, it's actually Gothic, but what's beautiful in this church is they kept the Romanesque church in Gothic. They extended it.
It's gorgeous. Can we walk down?
Yes, and
Without disturbing anyone?
no, you'll see usually in all these big cathedrals in France that are very old, it's always the same principle when they build. They never destroy a church and rebuild another one after. They usually start with a bigger church around the older. And the more they build,
out.
the more they destroy the older ones. Here they did not do the same, that's an exception. They kept the Romanesque church,
Right in the center.
dating back to 1140,
1140.
and then they extended it. in
Now,
the early
is this the
1200s.
original road?
Yes.
Floor.
Pavement, yes. With stones that date back to 500 million years ago.
So, wow. And this isn't even the oldest church in Vienne.
No, actually the oldest one in France, still standing, is here in Vienne. It's another one just
We'll
close
see.
to the ship.
We'll see it. But this is magnificent. So these are the original Romanesque.
Till actually where we are. Like there was a facade over there, here, till the early 1200s, and then they extended the church in the early 1200s. That's why the difference of style is very visible, sorry.
Oh, no.
Romanesque bays over there, and Gothic bays over there. Very different in terms of style.
Beautiful. Now, the stained glass certainly isn't that old, but it...
No, there are some stained glass windows that are original, dating back to Gothic and 1200s, but some of them were touched up a lot in the 1800s, and some that are rather new because of World War II.
Oh, you were bombed here.
The bridges.
The bridges,
so
of
with
course.
the blast, the closer to the river, now the newer they are.
Ah. Are these some of the original stained glass at the altar?
Yes. Even if
Could
they
we
were,
walk up just to see that? So 12th century stained glass.
yes, very, very beautiful, and most of them are about the patron saint of the
Which is?
church, Saint Maurice, Saint
Maurice.
Mauritius.
And what is he known for?
He was the captain of a Roman legion in the
Of course.
early centuries, and he was sent with his army in what is now Switzerland.
Okay.
And he received the order to kill all the Christians in the area where he was during these persecutions of Christians back then. And he refused as a Christian himself. And then the typical punishment in the Roman army is decimation. You kill 1 out of 10 in the legion. And he
that is
refused several
typical.
times.
Okay.
And then he became one of the first martyrs in the area. His relics were brought here more than 1,000 years ago.
Wow. Just beautiful. I love the tapestries as well.
And here you're walking on history, because that's a cross that is the symbol of something very important that took place here with the Templars. It's not very common. A lot of people know about this. We hear a lot about the treasure of the Templars. We hear about the connection to Freemasonry, etc. But the final chapter about the Templars took place here, where we are.
Did Dan Brown know that?
Well, I wish he had known. Well, you're a pope, I'm a king, and together we decide we suppress the order of the temple in 1311, 1312.
Wow.
The council, the Vienne Council, is the moment when both King of France and Pope Clement V suppressed the order of the temple.
Okay.
Yes,
Wow.
after weeks and weeks of discussions.
Where to next?
In Vienne,
In Vienne.
the Roman temple. You can't miss this.
Okay. Okay, Alex, as promised.
As promised.
As you promised, but smack dab in the middle of a square,
Yep.
surrounded by a cafe. I kind of like it. Makes it a living Roman temple.
It is actually what's beautiful in Vienne. Every corner there's a surprise in here. Wow, the landmark in the city, the Roman temple. And it's so impressive because it's still here. There are only 2 Roman temples that are still standing in France, and one is here in Vienne.
Only 2. Where's the second?
Nîmes,
Of course.
le temple, la maison carrée.
It's beautiful.
The same purpose for the one in Nîmes, for
But-
the imperial devotion to the
But
emperor.
very little reconstruction that I see. You can notice, and I like that it's obvious where they've reconstructed, but very little.
It's not that obvious, but actually the
Some of-
cella, the room inside, was rebuilt in the 1800s. Because
Okay.
the reason why it's still here, and that's why there were renovations, is it was turned into a church in the early 6th century. That's what
As
preserved
were
the
many.
building.
As were many.
Notre-Dame de la Vie,
Notre-Dame de la Vie.
another
It's
church
beautiful.
for Mary.
Okay, more ruins to show us?
A lot.
I hate to call them ruins. This is not a ruin.
Indeed, in French we would use the word vestige.
This is a vestige.
Things that are still here.
Certainement. The Temple of Augustus and Livia only slightly prepared us for our next view of antiquity. Just around the corner, carved out of a hillside, was the massive Roman theater of Vienne. As we explored the theater, all alone again, Alex pointed out the VIP seats, and of course, I had to test them out. Oh, Alex, this is magnificent and huge. How many did it seat?
11,000 seats 2,000 years ago.
11,000.
Was the second largest Roman theater in Gaul in France. Out of the 143 theaters the Romans built in France,
143 in France.
Yeah, that
this
was
is the second largest. And now?
up to 9,000 seats for the very famous jazz festival that is held here every single year, early July.
And I read that it is now the largest Roman theater in France.
Still today, yes.
I see some special seats down there.
Yes, it's the VIP section. I think we belong there. The lower, the more important you were
If
in the
the
society.
emperor visited, would he be sitting there?
He would sit actually in the middle of the orchestra.
It's where
a little
I'm
bit
headed.
further.
It's where I'm headed. Although in 100-degree heat, they might be a little warm.
It is.
I don't think the Romans knew how to air condition their marble. Ah,
Just in front of the stage.
voila. This is sitting in the seats of history rather than walking in the steps of history. And a living theater.
It's alive. It's living, yes, for the jazz festival that is here in this venue every year, early July. Nearly 200,000 spectators in 2 weeks. It's unbelievable.
But so wonderful you still use it.
Oui.
And so wonderful we can still sit here and marvel. Thank you so much for showing us Vienne.
Thank you.
So much to discover, but such a treasure that we're discovering it, and I feel almost first among travelers, and particularly Americans who aren't familiar with it. And to be able to be in a city like this and find these gems, to me, is more important than seeing the Mona Lisa in the Louvre.
That's the
this
beauty
is the
of Vienne.
simple pleasures, the simple memories, the big memories that come from the little moments.
Avec plaisir.
Ah, merci beaucoup.
De rien.
When I disembarked the Viking Bury this morning, I expected to see a few Roman sites. What I found was a Roman city in an extraordinary state of preservation. I could visualize the day-to-day life of its citizens as they went from their homes to the temple or to see a spectacle in the theater. Our final stop was in the Forum, where once again we were the only visitors. I could quietly imagine the sound of chariots on that well-worn road. Every stop on this journey has been memorable, but today ranks as one of my best travel days ever. I can't wait for tomorrow.